BayTheMarshall.com, the Republican candidate for governor.
Have sexual relations with
I realize that this is something he is
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Good morning, Cleveland, where you can shake, rattle, and roll. That's what we was listening to. We all got in a mood this morning to shake, rattle, and roll. Good morning, John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. Welcome to another edition of Backfire.
Good morning.
Oh, y'all sound like you're just excited this morning.
Well, it's a Backfire day.
It's another Backfire day, huh? All right.
And your bow tie.
And your bow tie.
I really think I nailed the bow tie.
All right, we've got some hot news right off the printer. Franklin, you want to tell us about the news that came into the station this morning?
Well, yesterday, the ad hoc committee that's going to do a sort of informal audit of the Sheriff's Department budget received a letter from a local attorney, Andrew Brown, advising that he's representing the sheriff in the matter. It's my understanding that happened after the state comptroller's office indicated that they would provide support to the ad hoc committee so they wouldn't actually have to pay for those auditing costs that were being discussed over the last few months. And so what's interesting about that is now Mr. Brown will end up being paid out of the Sheriff's Department budget. So I don't know what line item that will come out of, but that's what's going on right now. The state comptroller's office have some folks who go in and do these types of investigations, I guess, for lack of a better word, and they've indicated that they will assist the audit committee in doing that.
Well,
interesting development. The cost for the county is now on the other side of the ledger, not this side.
Well, I was always taught that when you get lawyered up, it's because that you want to be specific about what everybody's doing. So, in other words, give us an example of what will happen with him having the sheriff having an attorney during this. Some people call it a witch hunt, but some people don't call it a witch hunt. But we'll just call it the research.
Well, it's not clear what will happen other than he asked that any communications go through him. I assume that their communications would be toward looking for documentation and so forth to support purchases and expenditures that have been done by the Sheriff's Department in various parts of their budget.
Would there be any standing for denying a request from the
Well, that's
committee?
the interesting part. There's one side of it who would argue that the sheriff is a constitutional officer, almost like a president versus, a Congress. But the other side of that is the commission holds the purse strings for the sheriff's department. They decide how much the budget's going to be, that sort of thing. So
this is the same kind of argument we've had with the school board at times. The school board says we're the ones that are authorized, and the commission says yes, but you have to come to us for the money.
Yeah, so it's going to cost, well, it'll be interesting. The commission's found a way to do it at significantly less cost. I mean, there may be some cost with that, but certainly less than would have been if they hired an outside auditor to do that. So we'll see if the sheriff hiring his own counsel will increase the flow of information or impede it. We'll see.
Well, the sheriff, I thought attorney was Jimmy Logan. What's happened there?
Well, that's in the criminal case that was filed. Mr. Logan has from time to time served as counsel for the county, for Bradley County, so I don't think he could represent the sheriff in this issue back and forth with the county.
So, in other words, he can't hire his own attorney because his own attorney is the county attorney too now.
Well, he's not the county attorney.
Not the county attorney, but they
he's
have
the one the
But
county
he
hires
is-
all the time.
He does litigation for the county, as I
Yes,
understand.
handled that, so I understand it.
Okay, so he couldn't hire his own attorney, which is the county attorney's litigation attorney.
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure how they stipulate.
Well, he
Mr.
is.
Logan.
Let's put it this way: he is presently representing the county with respect to the appeals
Right.
of the division of liquor tax funds between the
So he
city
has
and county.
business with the county. Crystal Freiberg is the county attorney and is an excellent attorney that does excellent work.
And she's the one who was advising the ad hoc committee and the commission yesterday with respect to these issues. So that's the latest development, folks. That just happened yesterday.
All right. Well, thanks for bringing the information in. Any opinions?
Well, I hope that the sheriff's department will be completely transparent and will provide all the information that's requested.
I'm sitting here looking. Cleveland's fixing to celebrate 175th birthday party. Is that right?
I don't know. You're looking at it.
I don't know. I'm just kind of looking. A birthday party with cake and ice cream is scheduled from 2 to 5 on November 5th at the Greenway Pavilion.
Now,
Drive.
let me recommend that everybody go out to that, because I know with $6 million extra a year, that's going to be some good cake. They can afford good cake now with $6 million extra a year.
What do you think we're going to do with that extra $6 million a year, John?
We're going to waste it.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Look, we're going to do some good things with it. We need more police. We need more fire. But that's just the justification for a bunch more money for them to play with.
Well, do you think we'll get some new streets?
I don't know.
Actually, that's kind of the mystery of the $6 million.
Well, it may be
raise.
8. Stanley Thompson estimated that it would bring in $2 million more than they said.
All right, $6 to $8 million. And do we know where it's going to be spent yet? Does anybody really know?
Well, you know,
More police, more fire. We know that.
For example, I kept asking about the 1.3 in one-time capital outlays. One time. Now, they put a slide up that said one time. And I never could get a straight answer about after the one time, what are you going to do with that 1.3 million? Well, folks, 1.3 million is a lot of money to play with.
Yeah.
And at one point, I asked them if they would commit to pay it down on the debt. You know, they went through this big deal and said, oh, look, we're so worried about the debt. But when I said, well, fine, will y'all go on the record and commit to pay it down on the debt? They wouldn't do that. Oh, it's too complicated. We've got to hire a consultant.
Hire a consultant.
That's what we were told, that they had to hire a consultant. And I will have to say I was a little smart alecky. I said, you've got to hire a consultant to know that paying your mortgage down early is a good thing?
Oh, Franklin, any comments?
Well, I hope they'll bring forth some specific plans for how they're going to utilize the funds so that the public will have an opportunity to weigh in on those spending decisions, just as they had an opportunity to weigh in on the taxing decisions.
Well, actually,
I
Franklin,
mean, John and several other people showed up there. I think that's a highly commendable and
Oh, but
healthy
guess
thing
what?
for the democracy.
we
to
were
happen.
told that we weren't representative of the public at large.
Well,
So the people that took the time, and by the way, that's another thing, Cleveland City Council, if you really cared about the people, you'd have a meeting after work. You'd have at least one nighttime meeting when regular people who aren't at their 9-to-5 job could show up. So this idea that we care about the people, they don't even care enough to have a meeting when the people can come. And then when people take time out of their day to come, we're actually told in the meeting that, well, we don't think you really represent the general public.
The majority.
The majority. Which, by the way, I got to thinking about the people that went up there. There was something in common with the vast majority of the people that went up there. Most all of us own our own businesses. So we're the ones that are affected by this tax increase the most.
Well, I've heard there's a little power struggle going on right now, where people that are really upset are tired of talking about it publicly, and they're going to do something about it privately. So,
Well,
I don't know what that would be, except,
Running for office?
running for office, putting money in other places, doing things, getting a few new people in office seats, whatever.
Well, look, the thing is, to be honest, I mean, Franklin's right and he's wrong. We do need to have this discussion on where we're going to spend it. But don't you think that should have happened before they asked for the tax increase?
Yes.
I mean, shouldn't they have come with a really complete, thorough package of here's where every dime's going to go, and we're going to do this 6 months before we even talk about the tax increase? Now, they did this survey, and they kept bragging about the survey. The survey had no cost attached to it. It was a what do you want type of survey.
No comments, Franklin?
I think that John's argument that it's difficult for everybody to come to the meeting is a fine one. But the facts are a lot of people came to the meeting. And we're
told we didn't represent the general public.
Whether you did or not, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But there is that part of it is at least an open process. I'm glad that John and people who supported the position John took showed up and expressed that view. I suspect that it has some impact on decisions that they make, whether it affected all the ones they wanted or not. I hope as they move forward with this additional funding that they'll provide some clear ideas of what they're going to do and what that roadmap for the future looks like, so people like John and other people can show up and comment on that. I think the government's better served if it happens.
Let me ask Franklin something, because he may remember this better, but one of the big things they pushed on was the hall tax. They had lost the hall tax. Mm-hmm. Didn't they say that when they increased the sales tax for schools? Wasn't that supposed to replace the hall tax that they were going to lose? And by the way, wasn't that also supposed to take care of the schools? But yet when we got to this argument, it was we need this for the schools. And by the way, and this was another thing, several people went up there and said, oh, it was such a travesty when that hall tax was removed. It was a gift to the rich. I want everybody to listen real close to this. The hall tax, and I'm still working on getting more demographics on this, but so far, what I have been able to find out relatively easily was the people that pay the hall tax in the state of Tennessee, 73% are retirees.
Tell me exactly what the hall tax is.
If you have money in your savings account, you pay the hall tax on the interest.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
So most of the people that pay, 73% are retirees. So this is fixed income people, and yet we had people up there talking about, oh, that hall tax was, just to give me to the rich people. 73% are retirees. Yeah. That means fixed income.
Yeah. Well, what is the incentive to save money?
Well, that was part of the reason that Republicans pushed to remove the hall tax, because if people save money and put it back, and then the government punishes you for it by taxing it heavily, it's a disincentive to save. And by the way, the young people that go to the banks to borrow money to build a house or start a business, that's where the capital comes from that the bank loans to them. Comes from people who invested in the bank in the form of savings.
Right.
All of this is connected. Maybe they could hire a consultant to explain that to them.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Got a little cough. They're talking, I was reading something here about school possibly could save $9 billion a year if they started school at 8:30 instead of 8.
We can't talk about practical things like that. The state of Georgia had 2 or 3 counties right below us. I've been talking about it for years at this point now, that added 20 minutes to the time of each day. And because of that 20 minutes, they were able to cut the entire month of August out of the schedule, which did a couple of things. Gave the kids a month more summer to rest. It also got the hottest month of the year off of the schools. So and by the way, when they cool those schools down, they have to start in July. It takes a month to cool the school down.
Isn't that amazing?
So we cool those schools down in the absolute most expensive, hottest months of the year because they're starting earlier and earlier.
Well, I know
I wish you'd stop making sense. It makes for bad radio.
Well, I mean, it also kills the tourist industry, which
Absolutely.
actually we are a big participant in the tourist industry with the whitewater rafting and so forth around us here. I've got a friend who has whitewater rafting. He said the season has been cut about 25%.
Look, in the course of my children, my daughter's 26 now. In the course of her time in school, we used to always go on vacation after August 15th because that's when the rates drop,
That's
August 15th.
Now, wait a minute, John, I should have known that you would get the best deal.
Well, you know, if you're going to go,
Yeah, you and my wife.
I don't know why that's funny. I think that's smart. You and your wife are smart.
It is smart.
But we steadily, over the course of Alex, moving on up through the grades, first it was pushed back from around Labor Day to the 23rd, 24th. Then it was pushed back to about the 18th. And finally, towards the end, it was pushed back before the 15th, all the way up to the beginning of August, which meant if you were going to go on vacation, you had to pay the higher rates.
Well, do you think that the employers would want the schools' times to change? Would it matter?
You think 20 minutes makes any difference? Actually, that was one of the excuses that I always got. Oh, it'll throw everybody off their schedule. You're telling me that an employer who lets someone leave at 2:15 to pick up their child will go, oh, no, 2:45, not going to happen.
No, I think that the employers that, if they work with them, would be happy to have them come and stay there for the entire day instead of having to go pick them up at lunch and do all these crazy things they have to do now.
There's not a problem with adjusting that. I don't know what the fixation is with going to school in August. There is one suggestion that they actually want to go to year-round schools.
That's what I keep
and that
hearing.
they're trying to ease it in this way. I'd rather they just were honest and said we're going to go to year-round schools. Then we could debate that.
Well, I think that's where it's going. That's everything I hear. I was talking to some people here a few weeks ago about it, and they said, oh, well, eventually we'll be going year-round.
And, there are pluses and minuses to that, and we could have a debate on it.
I'll give you a good topic for discussion on that. Year-round school would probably would benefit whom?
Well, the argument is...
Would it benefit the teachers with more pay, or would it benefit the students with more education?
Well, no, the teacher's pay is based upon, is prorated over the course of a year.
You're not picking up more days.
No.
You're actually picking up more vacations spread out.
Because what they do is they divide the summer up essentially and provide little gaps on that. I've actually never understood why that would be easier for parents who have to try to find sitting or daycare or something on a sporadic basis. It seems to me that'd be harder.
Here's the genesis of the argument was that kids lose a lot over the summer break. And that by not having that long break that they will retain.
That's what I tried to do when I was a kid, lose it all.
Well, apparently it's true.
Yeah, when I took off, that last day of school was my magic moment.
You obviously spent too much time in summer.
I loved my summers when I was a young kid.
And we had 3 months. We had a solid June, July, and August.
That's when you learn. That's when you learn good things that you wouldn't learn in school. I learned how to frog gig. There's lots of things I learned how to do.
Well, the counter argument to that is that's just an extra month to play on one's phone now. So instead of getting out and doing those things that you're talking about.
Yeah, that's
a different. I mean, he's right, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to love to fish and frog gig and go down by the creeks and, all those good things. I used to try to learn how to ride horses, but horses and I just didn't get along. So I quit riding horses after I fell off 2 or 3 of them.
You have to start that early.
I guess you do. Yeah, I'm on summer break now, right?
Perpetual.
Oh, golly.
But now, there are North Georgia districts that did that. So there's plenty of evidence to look at if you really wanted to have a discussion on this topic.
Well, I think they've had them before, but they seem to be one-sided.
Well, we never have open discussions. We don't have a discussion where there's actually a possibility of the decision shifting. You know, when I went up to oppose this tax increase, I started out by going, this is a waste of my time because you all are going to do what you're going to do. You've already made up your mind. And they had. They sat there, stone-faced, stared at us, and then did what they were going to do. And then on top of that, one of them had to tell us, by the way, I don't think y'all really represent the, public, even though we took the time to come up there.
Yeah. All right. I'm sitting here looking at a headline that says schools topsoil might grow pay dirt.
Yeah, they're going to sell the topsoil.
That's a big news.
Well, it's river bottom, actually. That's probably very good topsoil.
You think we ought to sell it or use it?
Down there at the end of Paulus Parkway,
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about? Well, it probably is very good soil.
Yeah. Should we sell it or use it?
Well, knowing them, they'll sell it at $10 a load, and then they'll haul it back in at $20 a load to do their landscaping.
Oh, I don't know.
I think you ought to, if you have any left over. The problem with topsoil is you have to, when you build, you got to cut down to, solid foundation. You generally cut that down, push it back, build your building, and then you respread it. So I certainly wouldn't want to sell it until I was sure how much I needed. Of course, keep in mind their priorities have shifted over the years. The last elementary school they built, a priority was putting a sprinkler system in. So, because that helps educate your child having, a sprinkler system to water the grass. Children get a better education with greener grass.
Well, they get to see how it gets greener if they have a sprinkler system.
That's right.
It's a science project, maybe. Maybe it's a science project.
And, plumbing project.
Actually, that would be a good plumbing project, wouldn't it, for the kids? Congress is returning to Washington. What do you think is going to happen now?
I think they're going to have to pay some attention to immigration reform.
I think that's going to suck all the air out of the room. I think it's really strange decision-making on the president's part. I think it's going to make it harder for his tax reform proposals to get the attention that it wants.
Well, let me ask you something. Is it not the Congress' responsibility to do some of this?
Well, you and I might agree on that, but when you've got somebody like Steve Bannon, who was quoted as saying he's really excited about this because he thinks it's going to, quote, tear the Republican Party apart. So it's really curious to figure out what's going on. The Congress could have fixed, if the Congress thought that the president's actions were, meaning President Obama's actions were unconstitutional, they had the ability to fix it at any time.
Well, actually, if the president thought it was the thing to do, he had huge majorities in 2009 and 10 that he could have done it, and he didn't. And he actually went on record multiple times saying he couldn't do what he then did in the middle of an election year, which he at the time said was a temporary stopgap measure.
That's great, John. That's all fine and good. But the facts are the Republicans are in control of all the branches of government right now. Well, we'll see if they do or not. I hope they do.
Well,
I hope they do too.
Do you not think Trump was smart to do it this way? Put it back into Congress? Let them make decisions.
If they do. If they do.
Wait a minute. If they do.
Well, here's the problem.
No, here's the problem. You got the leadership of the Republican Congress wants to do a program like DACA. Okay?
Yeah.
The base, the conservative movement inside the Congress, does not want to do it.
Well, we don't know that.
Well, they've come out and said so I don't know why we would not give them.
You have reasons on both sides, Republican and Democrat, to get it done.
Right.
You have reasons on both sides not to get it done. The Democrats, there's a really good chance, will scuttle this because it's too valuable of a political tool to them.
The short answer is this. If they persist in what they've done for the last 10, 12 years, the, quote, Hastert rule, which is a majority of the Republicans have to agree to it before they'll even let it come up for a vote, then it will not pass. It'll get stuck in the electoral politics of it. He's right. John's right. There is a solid majority of the Congress between Democrats and Republicans who would vote for this. If it ever comes up for a vote.
In other words, we could get together and vote on something
We got a
together.
whole bunch of issues that'd be like
Wait
that.
a minute. Let me tell you the problem here. The conservatives have to concede to allow some type of amnesty type program
Right.
through this.
Right.
But the Democrats, if you really want to work a deal out, the Democrats have to concede something on the border wall. Now, the interesting thing about that is both of those have pretty high levels of support among the general public.
Right.
General public supports not getting rid of these kids.
Right.
And the general public supports increased security at the borders.
Yes.
Now, the Democrats would have to give on that. The Republicans would have to give on the program. If
Okay.
both sides would do that, this would work out fine. And I actually think Franklin doesn't want to do it, but I think you have to give Trump credit for saying, look, this thing was unconstitutional. I had about 12 states that were going to sue me, and almost all legal authorities think that the government would lose the lawsuit. So does Trump go to court and defend something he doesn't agree with that he's going to lose? Or does he push it back with this 6-month window, which effectively tells Congress, get your act together, fix this? But it's going to require both sides to cooperate.
Jeff Sessions argued that Congress, rather than the executive branch, is responsible for writing immigration law. And he's the one that helped persuade the president to terminate the program and kick the issue to Congress.
What was stopping the Congress from fixing it? What was stopping them?
Well, I think it's politics.
Well, I can tell you one thing that was
I
stopping.
think it's called politics.
No, wait a minute. Here's one
the
thing that was
Republicans
stopping them.
have majorities
Right,
in
but
both
here's the one
houses.
thing that was stopping them. Obama did an unconstitutional patch that allowed it to just linger.
Okay, before Obama.
That's why they didn't fix it.
Before Obama.
The Democrats were in control, and you're
Before
right. You're
Obama.
right. They should have
Yes,
done
and
it.
the Republicans wouldn't allow it to come up because of the filibuster rule, and you know it's true.
Dana Perino just yesterday said that on leaving office, Bush suggested to Obama that he concentrate on immigration reform first. And Obama didn't take the advice.
The so-called Dreamer Act passed the Senate when the Democrats were in charge. It never even came up for a vote in the House.
Well,
Republicans wouldn't even bring it up
Marco
for a
Rubio
vote.
had another act ready to go, and President Obama, by most accounts, actually behind the scenes scuttled that for political reasons. There's politics that's been played
the
on both
answer is
sides.
exactly what I just said a moment ago. If they insist that a majority of the Republican Party has to vote for it first, it will never make it to a vote.
What does DACA stand for?
Deferred Action for Childhood
Which, by
Arrivals.
the way, the media is exploiting that. The average age of these people is 26 years old now.
Well, sure,
they're
because
not
they
children.
grew up here.
They're not children.
As Trump said, young adults.
They're not children. They go on up into their 30s.
But they're people who got here, in many cases, when they were 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
Are being very productive citizens.
Well, now let me. On average, they are. But here's the problem too: the media trots out the Harvard graduate. What they don't tell you is 2,139 recipients have lost their status due to criminal activity.
Okay.
So for every Harvard person you trot out, there's also a murderer or a rapist you can trot out. So
there's 800,000 people
well, they
involved
think there
in
may
this.
actually be only 600,000. That's another problem with the numbers.
All right, let's say 700,000. Let's split the difference there.
Mm-hmm.
What should be done?
They should have a pathway to a legal status. That's
All
what
of
should-
them?
Unless they're criminals, as John mentioned, of course. Why shouldn't they?
Well, let me tell you another problem with that. Obama used, now listen to this, these people basically got to jump line.
Right.
So you
They
had,
didn't get to jump line. They were brought here as children.
Franklin, let me talk.
That's not jumping line.
They're
Can I say something? How did they get here as children?
Illegally.
Their parents brought them here.
Well,
I'm not
by the
asking
way,
for citizenship for
illegally?
their parents.
Illegally?
We're not talking about their parents' citizenship.
Well, actually,
We're talking
they
about them.
were, because President Obama did the DAPA program that was immediately struck down as unconstitutional for the parents. So he tried to do it for the parents, too. But frankly, what I'm telling you about jumping line is there's already been over 1,000, there's 1,056 of them have become U.S. citizens through the DACA program, which Obama, when he did it, said wasn't available. that nobody wasn't a path to citizenship. That was his actual words. Well, over 1,000 of them have gotten citizenship through it because they allowed them to get a green card, which then allowed them to become citizens, which means they were allowed to vote.
I saw the most amazing thing this week. There was it's available on the internet. Anybody can look it up. It's a debate during the 1980 Republican presidential primaries between George H.W. Bush and Ronald Reagan. Both completely trashing what the Republican Party is currently arguing for. Completely arguing that it's important for our economy to make it so that it's easier for people to come work here, easier for them to go back where they want to do.
Legally.
Yes, but fix the problem.
But
That's
Franklin,
right.
why didn't y'all fix the problem?
Why don't y'all now?
We are.
You've
Got a president that just said fix the problem, and you're criticizing him.
You
just
got
said
the
fix the problem.
majorities. Just do
Well,
it.
we're going to. We've got 6 months to do
You
it.
heard it right here. They're going to.
But Franklin, let me finish what I was saying. What this did was you have over 1 million people that are legally allowed to come to the country, and they go through all the processes to come legally. What this DACA allowed people to do was jump the line in front of the people that took years in their home country to come legally. And to add insult to injury, guess who paid for it, Franklin? You know who paid for DACA?
Who's that?
The legal immigrants had to pay a fee that Obama then used the money from that pool to pay for the DACA program. So he took people who were doing everything right, everything legal, took their money and used it to allow the DACA people to cut the line in front of them, adding insult to injury.
All right, do we have, I guess they get benefits?
No.
Yes, they do
Well,
get benefits.
Some of the children do. Their parents don't.
Right. They came
They
legally, and now they're getting benefits from the taxpayers, which is another insult to injury.
And vote.
Of course,
And they
of course,
vote.
you forget that these folks are in many cases paying taxes. You forget about that.
Fine,
part.
Franklin. So are all the legal immigrants who did everything right by the rules. The people that played by the rules,
All
you
right,
know?
let's not take sides on this. Let's just go way back to the win.
Well, look,
Should
here's
we
one of your
allow
wins.
people to come over our borders illegally?
No, we should have a common sense system that takes reality into
Common
account.
sense reality. Tell me what you're talking about.
Look, tons of those people, in fact, the majority of those people, are coming here because there are employers who want to hire them, who are not finding people here to do those jobs.
Don't we have visas for that?
We should have visas, but not all of them.
I know that we do.
No, we don't have enough of those because there's a quota system that limits those. So if you really want to address this,
Then why would
and
you
our,
just
our
increase
argument
the
is
quotas?
our argument has always been this. No, hold on. There's nothing wrong with fixing it so that we cut down on illegal immigration. But the problem is
They
you
vote,
blame
don't they?
all these immigrants
For voting?
coming here. No, for not voting.
Is that why they let them come
Well,
here
actually,
illegally?
they do vote. We've shown they vote.
Go
They
ahead.
vote in
I'm sorry,
California.
I'm sorry, Franklin. Keep going.
All right, but you don't ever want to put any of the attention on the people who are drawing them here and who are taking advantage of them, who hire
Actually,
them.
we do. I'm all for the E-Verify. I'm all for
That's
going
the
after
problem.
the hire
All y'all
employers.
do is you put Trump up there talking about this wave of rapists and murderers coming across the border, when in fact that's not really
You know,
true.
Franklin, it's kind of funny. You're trying to allude to this. Once again, the Republicans are in bed with big business. The Chamber of Commerce is in bed with the pro-open borders people. They're the ones on the side
Well, at
of
least
this,
they're
not
being
on our side.
intellectually honest.
They're not on our side, Franklin. They're on you all's side.
They're being intellectually honest. Those employers would like to have a legal system.
What's the problem with having one?
Do it!
Because it's
We have
too
one. They've
useful.
been blocking it
Because
for 20
it's too
years.
useful to the Democrat. If it
They've
was
been
so
blocking
important,
it.
Franklin,
They'd have to register,
No,
wouldn't they?
Franklin, you all had huge majorities when Obama was first elected. You didn't do anything for the illegal
facts
immigrants.
are beginning in 2000, when the Republican presidential race was going on, you had significant numbers of Republican congressmen and senators who wanted to pass this kind of comprehensive
And
bill.
the president that wanted
And
to.
then
And
what
the
happened
president.
is you got a group of hardline conservatives who started screaming bloody murder about it. And they made it so it was politically unpalatable for them, and nothing's happened since.
And no, wait a minute, Franklin, you're right. And then what happened in 2008? Well, actually, 6. What happened in 2006?
Not enough to get past the filibuster.
You all took actually you had huge majorities. You
Not
had
enough to get past the filibuster.
At one point you did. You had
No, we didn't.
Yes, you did, Franklin. And Obama had huge, much bigger majorities than Trump has right now. And he did absolutely nothing. President Bush even advised him to take care of immigration first. He did nothing. Matter of fact, if you want to be really cynical about it, behind the scenes, he scuttled Marco Rubio's attempt to do something about it for political purposes. So your people could have done anything they wanted to do, and they chose not to because they wanted to keep it as a political tool.
Can't get a vote. Can't get a vote.
Well, President Bush or President Trump has put it
The
squarely
truth
back
is,
in
if the
Congress's
bill
lap.
came up for a vote, it would pass today. And a bunch of Republicans would join in, but not a majority of them.
Franklin, here's how this will work if both sides keep their honesty in check. The Republicans will have to compromise, some of them, and some of them have indicated they're willing to, but the Democrats will have to compromise on border security. That's the broad nature of a compromise here. And to be honest, what's really insulting about this is the Democrats who would compromise on border security all voted for border security in 2006. Nancy Pelosi voted for it, Barack Obama voted for it, Hillary Clinton voted for it. So the very thing the Republicans are going to ask for in a compromise was supported by the Democrats in 2006.
There's tons of people that will vote for border security. They won't vote for this stupid boondoggle of a wall.
That's it, right there. Now, so in other words, we want you to compromise and give us what we want, but we won't compromise.
Here are the facts, not
so
that
you won't
anybody
compromise.
cares.
Don't worry about facts.
Listen to what you just
of course
said.
not.
You would kill the bill over the wall, wouldn't you? You'd kill the bill over the wall.
If I were a fiscal conservative, I would kill the wall.
No, right now, as who you are, as a Democrat in Congress, would you vote to kill the bill over the wall, yes or no?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's your compromise.
Depends on when I get there.
Franklin, if
well,
you're
that just
asking
shows
them
you
to compromise,
exactly
you
how
have to.
stupid the Republican
So in
Party's
other
got.
words,
It's completely
listen to what you just said.
No, wait, let's just talk
so
some
we're
facts.
Our opinion's stupid, but yours isn't.
Let's talk some facts.
I bet we got some smart Democrats out there.
These conservative small government Republicans over here want the federal government to steal land from 400,000 Americans, a process that will take 20 years to complete, and to throw billions and billions of dollars at something that virtually everybody says won't have any impact.
What's that got to
He
do with
doesn't
what
want
we're
it.
talking about?
It has
What's
to do
that
with-
got to do with what we're talking about, Franklin?
He just linked the two together. That's what.
That's called compromise, Franklin. And what y'all
Your
just heard,
compromise
what
is-
y'all just heard is why the Democrats will scuttle this deal.
What you
Because
just
they
heard
think
is
that they're smarter
your
than
people
you.
don't want to actually do anything that actually makes a darn
Franklin,
bit of
you're
difference
missing the
for the
point.
country.
In your opinion.
In everybody's
No, Franklin,
opinion,
no,
the
not
brain.
in everybody's opinion. That's the point. I personally, and this is a great example of us all the way down the line, I think your idea is wrong. You think our idea is stupid. And that's the difference. You're an elitist liberal who thinks you're smarter than other people, and so it's okay for you to obstruct. It's okay for you to obstruct because you're so much smarter than
I'm
us.
sorry, aren't the Mexicans supposed to pay
They're
for this
building a wall on the southern border
Aren't
of
they
Mexico
supposed to
as
pay
we
for it,
speak.
John?
They're building a wall on their southern
Aren't
border
they
as we
supposed
speak.
to pay for
Franklin,
it, John?
listen to me. Mexico is
Are they
building.
going to pay for our wall, John?
They're paying for their
Are
southern
they
border
gonna
wall.
pay for
I don't
our
know,
wall that
Franklin.
the president
I don't know.
promised
That has
everybody?
nothing to do with whether the wall should be built.
Why don't you just run W.C.
Franklin?
Fields so he can say there's a
See,
sucker
folks,
born
now
every
you're
day?
W.C. Fields. Now this is the problem. Liberals think that conservatives are stupid, and they think
No,
we're evil.
conservatives
We're stupid and
think
evil.
you can say all this crap in a campaign,
So it's
never
crap.
deliver
So,
any on
folks,
it, and then say
all
it's
you
somebody
folks
else's
out there-
fault.
Hey, Franklin, hold on a minute. I'm starting to agree with you on some things, but I'll be back and let's talk about it some more. Take a break.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Checking the cash, you got a brand new choice. Our flexible loans really making noise. Flex your money, my soul. Flex your money, my soul.
A check-in to cash flex loan puts you in control. Visit your nearest store for details.
Shape a flex loan to fit your needs. Make your next loan a flex loan and set yourself free. Flex your money muscle at checking the cash.
Some restrictions apply. See store for details.
Yeah.
Hey folks, Glenn here from U.S. Money Shops. If you think all pawn shops are dark and dreary, then you haven't been to U.S. Money Shops. From hard-to-find items to unique jewelry to the latest electronics, we have it. And guns, we have a huge selection of guns in a variety of colors from a variety of manufacturers. And when you buy any gun at U.S. Money Shops, you get a box of ammo and a case absolutely free. So come see what I'm talking about. Any of our 12 U.S. Money Shops locations in Tennessee and Georgia. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
Buy or sell or apply today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Oh, uptown hound, I wanna go when you're out of town. I bet you never thought you'd hear me howl.
Listen to your dogs and take them to Uptown Hound when you're headed out of town. Uptown Hound, located at 3506 Old Freewell Road, 478-0555, or find them online at myuptownhound.com.
I know you need a break, well, what about me? That's what I need.
Hey everyone, this is Drew from the Bald Headed Bistro. Come enjoy the Benton Station Boys every Wednesday night from 6 to 8 on our patio. And for a special treat, we welcome any bluegrass musician in the area to come down and join the boys from 7:30 to 8:30. While you're here, don't forget to ask about our whole roasted chicken feast for two. That's right, we're serving the whole 3-pound bird with our homemade mashed potatoes and Chef Eric's root beer braised collard greens, all for $19.95. Come on down and hope to see you soon.
Hey, this is Fro Daddy. Are you out of work? Are you looking for a job? Or are you just looking for a career change? Call my friend Chris today at Advantage Resourcing, the #1 staffing agency in the Cleveland, Athens, Dayton, and Chattanooga area. You can reach Chris at 296-1916. That's 296-1916. And tell him Fro Daddy sent you. With jobs open right now from $11.50 an hour to $24 an hour, you can't afford not to call him. Call Chris today, 296-1916 at Advantage Resourcing, or check them out online at apply.advantageresourcing.com. That's apply.advantageresourcing.com. And tell Chris I said hi.
Train engineers put our heating and cooling products for almost every test imaginable. So while you're sending your kids to school, they're sending 10,000 volts through a compressor. Testing like this is the reason Train is so reliable, and why our engineers prefer their steaks. Well done.
Ready to indulge in Train comfort? Call the Train Comfort Specialist at Mechanical Systems, 336-5739. High-quality service and installation for more than 30 years.
It's hard to stop a train. Really hard.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson on Whoop FM. Call 423-614-5553 to join in on the conversation. Now, back to Backfire.
All right, I want to get back a little bit at some of the same conversation, but I think what Trump is proposing right now is for Congress to get off their butts.
He's not proposing anything. It was unconstitutional by President Obama's own statements.
Right.
And it was temporary by President Obama's own statement.
Right.
Should have been done by Congress to begin with.
Right.
Probably wouldn't have withstood a judicial challenge. So Trump was faced with, do I go to court and defend this indefensible bill, or do I put it back where it belongs in Congress?
That flaming liberal Orrin Hatch urged the president not to do what he did this time.
Yeah, you know why? Because the Republicans and the Democrats don't want to deal with it. It's a bomb on either side.
Like I said, Congress needs to do its job.
This is Congress's job.
This is Congress's job. Do you agree with that, Franklin?
I would love for the Congress to do it.
Do you think President Trump is doing the right thing by throwing this back into Congress for them to make a decision?
Time will tell.
Do you think a 6-month time limit on it is enough?
More than enough.
Well, it's more than enough to know whether they can succeed in doing it or not. Well, I think if you want to be if you want to be political about it, though, The real question is how many big issues they're willing to address at one time, and he's supposedly wanting to do tax reform right now.
Look, Senator Tom Cotton and Senator David Perdue have proposed the RAISE Act, which concentrates on language and skill requirements. It's aimed to protect American workers and to help these kids. And they're going to propose that. And if the Democrats will cooperate and if the Republicans will cooperate and both sides compromise a little bit, we'll get through this.
Here's the thing, and what I was saying a moment ago.
Okay.
It's not going to matter if the Democrats compromise or not until the Republicans make a decision on whether they insist on a majority of the Republicans supporting the bill, because they won't allow it to come up for a vote until then.
I think President Trump's going to...
Well, it would be...
he's not going to be Republican or Democrat on this
honestly, it would be helpful, I think.
Do you think Donald Trump has swung to the middle here on this issue?
No, what I think is that he has not really offered a position on it yet, and that's one of the issues.
Even the New York Times said they think the position is that he doesn't want to end it. And that this was a giveaway, basically saying, I'm not going to end it. Now, Steve, honestly, as a Trump supporter, he told people in the campaign he would end it. But he doesn't really want to end it.
Oh, I understand that that they're trying to say that he's not going to fulfill what he said he was going to do here, and that he's swinging to the middle to come in with some kind of
well, look, the problem is that's all a moot point because this was always Congress's job to fix.
Well, Trump has said he's thought about this, and it is a hard decision now that these kids have been here since they were 3, 4 years old, 5 years old. And set roots out here.
Well, there are other problems to this.
Oh, there's other problems, and I think we ought to deal with them.
For example, if you allow this, you've got a couple of things. If it allows more parents to look, if they know they can get away with this, to continue to come. So it serves as a magnet for people coming across the border. So you've got to find a way to help these people without encouraging new people to continue to come.
Well, if you stop them at the border and turn them back, that handles it, does it not?
It does. That's why it's a perfect
that
combination.
The majority of these people that we're talking about, okay, I will say this to John. If we can get the debate onto facts, we might be able to make some progress. Some of these people who came across the border came across literally illegally. A lot of them came across legally and stayed illegally.
Either way, it's illegal. They're both illegal.
I'm not saying it's not, John. But the point is, it's not. It's no.
But what is your point?
Let him finish, man.
He's talking about the border security issue. Okay, there's a portion of that's relevant, legally, but some of them that would not have been affected at all by that concept.
Well, let me bring up another thing that Obama did to them, which it's amazing that they keep voting reliably Democrat. By doing this, they have now given all of their information to the government through the DACA program. They've given their name, their address, everything to the government. They trusted the government. Now, in previous to this, immigration attorneys in a lot of cases were advising DACA people not to cooperate with the government because you were basically trusting the government. Well, now when he ends the program, the government now has all of their contact info. So if they wanted to round them up and send them back, they now have accurate data to do it with.
So the president,
so Obama,
you
put
like
them
what he
at
did or
risk.
not, did something at that point that enhanced the possibility of security.
But he put them at greater risk, Franklin. I mean, he was telling them, I'm helping you, but at the same time, Obama actually put them in this mess. Sure. So when the liberal whiny britches start going, they're going to round them up. Well, the reason they can round them up is because of Obama.
Which you would have supported, right?
No, not necessarily, Franklin.
You would have supported them staying in the shadows then. Is that what you're saying?
No, Franklin. I support Congress doing its job.
I'm all for that.
Which is what Trump, I actually think, look, I've not always been a, blanket supporter of President Trump. I think this was the right thing to do. Jonathan Turley, liberal law professor, says it's the right thing to do.
I don't really mind you citing Jonathan Turley, but I've had it up to here with you calling him a liberal. He ain't liberal.
He
ain't liberal.
I know him, Franklin. He's very
you
liberal.
know him, John, but I'm telling you, You can't come in here week after week after week espousing positions that he takes that are anything but liberal and keep
folks,
calling him a liberal.
Folks, let me tell you something. I know the man. He's against capital punishment. He's pro-choice. He actually supports everything in DACA. He just says it's unconstitutional. But what Franklin just showed you is the litmus test for liberals.
It's not a litmus
If you
test.
have a principle and you say, look, I support this, but it's not constitutional, they will cut your throat in a heartbeat. They
I'm not
require
cutting his throat.
the
I'm not even
social
criticizing the
liberal
man.
progressives
Just quit
require
using him as
complete
the poster child for
blind
liberalism.
support. Blind support is what they require.
Hey, Franklin, have you bought a copy of Hillary's new book yet?
I have not.
Are you planning on buying one?
No.
What do you think about Hillary's book? I mean, The Blame Game. Is that the name of it? What's the title of it?
By the way, now Bernie Sanders is to blame.
Yeah. Well, how could Bernie Sanders cost Hillary the election?
Oh, I'm sure the argument will be that portions of his supporters didn't support her, and that his presence in it pushed her further to the left, which hurt her in the general election.
Well, maybe if she'd had
I'm sure
principles,
those
she
are all,
wouldn't have got
those
pushed
are all
further to the left.
possibilities, but no, I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with Bernie Sanders costing her the election?
I think there's a whole host of factors that cost her the election.
By the way, they started a new business, a new online business for all the 65 million people that supported her because they're underrepresented in the media, according to them. She endorsed it the other day, and it was immediately hacked.
I mean, there's all kinds of factors that cost her the election. Let's keep in mind that she won a majority of the votes. So, I mean, literally.
What's that got to do with anything?
Nothing.
Well, it does have something to do with
Tell
it.
me what.
Because
Didn't Reagan win the majority sometime at one time?
It's happened before.
And then the Democrats were
what?
Didn't Reagan win by a majority vote? And the Democrats were saying that.
No.
The Democrats play this whichever way it works for them.
The point I was making before I was interrupted.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Was that literally 65,000 votes would have swung it. So when you say what cost her the election, well, it could be a whole host of factors that could have affected 65,000 votes.
The problem is she can list a whole host of factors. She just can't list the big ones like, I'm a bad candidate.
Okay.
I didn't go to states, Michigan.
I'm
that I
crooked.
should have gone
I'm
to.
crooked.
I'm dishonest.
Okay. John,
Do
I didn't say anything about
But look, I'm glad for the book.
that. I'm just
because
saying
it'll tear the Bernie
there's a lot of
Sanders
issues.
people apart. You know, now she's going to blame, she's already blamed the DNC.
I
Democrats
will
didn't
say
support her.
this, and I'm curious what John thinks about it. I think there's a lot of evidence right now that we are seeing, although they're going to, both going to fight till their last dying breath, that we are seeing the demise of the two major political parties in the country right now. I think there's a lot of evidence to that.
Well,
We're going to have a third party?
No.
I don't know if we're going to have a third party or we're going to have 10 parties. But the way that we have seen it in the past, I think, is struggling. You can say whatever you want. The facts are there's only about 22% of the population that identifies themselves as a Republican. Only about 24% identify themselves as Democrats.
Do you
right
think
now.
the Democratic Party's in trouble?
I think both of them are in trouble. And you're seeing right now. And I'm not saying this to be critical, but, Steve Bannon did make that quote this week. He thinks this DACA thing, and it's his quote, is going to, quote, tear the Republican Party apart, which he thinks is a good thing. John may or may not agree with that. I don't know. But it is really interesting because there is a schism in the Republican Party on this issue. There's schisms in the Democratic Party on other issues. But that's happening. So whether they can overcome those or not is really the interesting question.
Well, the interesting question is whether a country that is based on the kind of system, federalized system that we're based on, can tolerate having multiple parties, like he just said. Because we don't put coalition governments together like European countries do.
We don't typically, but there's no intrinsic reason why, for example, there couldn't be a third party that succeeds and wins 2 or 3 states. 2 or 3 states over
California,
the last,
New York
would have allowed that party to swing the balance on numerous votes.
California, New York, Chicago.
No, I didn't mean it that way. I'm talking about the Senate. I mean, for most of the last 25 years, the Senate's been relatively close for most of it, and 3 or 4 votes pulled out of one party and not necessarily given to the other, but stayed independent, would allow those 3 or 4 states to have tremendous control over things.
Well, if you're going to talk about that, I personally think that the senators should have continued to be appointed by the state legislatures and serve that. The reason that the Senate and the House are set up the way they were was because originally the senators were not supposed to be popularly elected. They were supposed to represent the state as a whole.
Right. And now it's all about politics.
It's all about politics. The Senate is starting to function more like the House, which is not necessarily a good thing, because it wasn't meant to be like that. It was meant to actually be a break on government.
I was having a conversation with a really good friend of mine this week, and he was talking about the baby boomers. The baby boomers are starting to get to a point now. Well,
they're starting to boom.
They're starting to really boom out. And, they grew up in an era of a wonderful era and learned from the people that were there before them in the Depression and some of these type of things. Well, now we've got the left coming up, and it's basically taken over, and the baby boomers are just starting to leave the scene. So what's going to happen in the future? And we were talking about the left. As baby boomers, we can look back and see how America's been affected. But the baby boomers, they're really starting to have control because of their computers and everything else that's going on. They're having a lot of control, but they don't have any resource to see what the outcomes have been.
Well, apparently they can't read about Venezuela.
Right.
And what's actually happening right now.
What's your opinion on that, Franklin? You think the left is really going to take this country over? The baby boomers are gone. Everybody, it's just the computer era, the age of the fast communications and so forth. And
I think the country definitely struggles with that transition.
I think we're having a real struggle with it.
Okay. We have a huge number of returning veterans now, so that's very similar to the baby boomer generation who had lots of, or their parents anyway. So that effect is going to come in there. There is a difference between a volunteer army and a draftable army. As I've said on here before, I think there's a lot of merit to the idea of some sort of mandatory national service, whether it's military or otherwise.
I would agree with that.
I have a question here. Should we put the Pledge of Allegiance back into the schools?
Absolutely.
It's in a lot of schools still. It hasn't been taken out by law or anything.
But it's out of a lot of schools, too.
I absolutely think that there needs to be more civics education. I think that we have sometimes gotten away from the concept of patriotism and mixed up patriotism as somehow condoning things that we disagree with, as opposed to just loving your country. And I think that's something that we ought to work on more. But I think that's not just government, though. That's a breakdown in our households, in our churches, and all sorts of places.
Should we put prayer back in school?
Yes.
My view about that has always been it's a personal issue, and if a person wants to pray, there's nothing that stops them from doing that.
When you were in school, did you have a prayer?
We had some prayers sometimes.
Did you do the Pledge of Allegiance?
We had the Pledge of Allegiance every day.
Yeah.
I had prayers in high school. Curiously enough, I don't remember having them in elementary school, which is the interesting part. Well, I'm older than you, though, so moment of silence came along later. But I mean, what was irritating about that is I don't ever remember doing the prayer in elementary school. I remember that started in high school, which I thought was kind of odd.
What worries me is that prayer's been taken out of schools.
Well, you can track, if you go back and look at the Supreme Court decision that started that ball rolling, right at that same time is when teen pregnancies skyrocketed, drug use skyrocketed, all kinds of criminal activities skyrocketed. You can see the change in our culture.
What's the argument for not having prayer in school?
Somebody might feel pressured.
The argument is in most communities, at least where we grew up, that it was effectively the state endorsing one particular religion. Because certainly the prayers were always going to be Protestant prayers here. It wasn't going to be a Catholic prayer. It wasn't going to be a Mormon prayer.
I wouldn't care about a Catholic prayer.
Huh?
I wouldn't care about a Catholic prayer or a Mormon
you would or
prayer.
not, it's different. A lot of other people would have.
What about a Muslim prayer?
Well, that's the point. Could they do that?
If you had Muslims in the school, I think from
Well,
a
you
freedom
probably
standpoint,
do have
you'd
it. You
to.
probably do have a few.
Could we
Muslims.
just have a moment of silence?
Well, they ended that too, because, I mean, here's how ridiculous this guy, the compromise, and again, that's my problem with the liberals. They don't believe in compromise. The compromise was, well, we'll just have a moment of silence. Well, then the atheist came along and said, yeah, but the little atheist kid knows that everyone else is praying, and that psychologically puts pressure on him, so we can't even have a moment of silence.
I have said in here before that I don't think we're very mature as a country about these issues. But I think it works in both directions. I think that we ought to be able to tolerate without much trouble somebody who wants to have that exercise of their religious views. But I think we also ought to acknowledge that that toleration doesn't mean that we should allow those people to push everything on other people, which is what frequently happens. And we ought
From
to
the
both.
left.
And we ought. No, I'm not talking about that. But we ought to both acknowledge that there's an immaturity on both sides that we ought to find a way to overcome.
Well, frankly, here's the difference, though. Conservative Christians are not bringing lawsuits to force a football coach to say a prayer. It's the atheist, liberal, progressives that are bringing lawsuits to force the coach not to pray.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see where we don't force people to pray. They're the one. You all are the ones that force people not to pray.
Mm-hmm.
How could we ever get that weak?
Well, that's your churches and your culture and everything.
I mean, we saw that schism this past week on that. I personally will take the view that I don't think our churches have done a very good job over the last 25 years managing the development of and promotion of faith.
Well, that's because they've become part of this do good deeds stuff and not actual Christianity.
Well,
that's right.
You saw that whole Joel Osteen thing going on all last week.
About the church that flooded?
Well, about whether the church was whether he was going to let people come into the church during the flood and use it as a shelter or not.
Look, for me, that's a secondary issue. The point is, pastors ought to be preaching the Bible as the inerrant word of God, and we've lost sight of that. We want to adopt what we like, let go what we don't like. We want to make everybody feel good, and quite frankly, Christianity isn't about making everybody feel good.
If there's you say the Republicans and Democrats both got problems, and there could be another party or two. What do you think it's going to be?
There's clearly
socialist.
There's clearly a opening.
A socialist?
No.
I think you'll have a conservative movement and you'll have a liberal movement. And the two parties may end up simply changing names and becoming a conservative and a liberal party.
We're running late and we got to go. I want to say this as we end. I think we're going to have a Trump party. Let's go. See you later. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson, John Stanberry, and Franklin